Welcome back to A Plus Parents, everyone. And so, we talk about role models, right? So I'm going to say today, our guest today would be role modeling what it's like to be a high school graduate getting ready for college, what that looks like, and the adventures of what we call independent study. So we call it homeschooling, but Fatima Sullivan, who's our guest today, actually has taken a track that's just slightly different, where she's been homeschooling at home. She's been doing her schooling, but really she's been part of an independent study program at a charter school in California called Sage Oak Charter School. We actually get the chance to work with Sage Oak Charter School, and that's how I get to meet Fatima as well. She started taking math courses with us. So if you happen to be in the California area and you want to find out more about charter schools and how they work, where you can do your independent studies from home, it's an awesome opportunity. And so check it out in California. If you're outside of California, they don't necessarily have those outside of areas outside of California the way that they're structured in California. So keep doing what you're doing. But first of all, let me tell you a little bit about Fatima, and then I'll have her share a little bit about herself. So, she just graduated high school. She decided, and I love, we talked a little bit about this before we're getting ready to record that she took a gap year this year. And she told me something really interesting. So we'll come back to that about the gap year and what the gap year looked like to get ready for college at the same time that she could still apply for scholarships and all the different things that she's doing. And she's a recipient of a Quest Bridge scholarship. So she's attending, after a gap year, Northwestern University, where she's going to study music. She's a phenomenal musician. And first of all, she's a phenomenal person, but then take on the musician side of things as well. All right. So what did she do when she was at her school at Sage Oak? Well, while she was at Sage Oak, and she started there in the 8th grade, that she was able to, she was on their first student council that they ever had. She became the president of the student council. She won the leadership award at graduation. She was the commencement speaker at their graduation. So yes, we got the real deal here, right? She also started a music club at her school. So it's like, oftentimes we talk about how do we get young people working together and socializing? So someone like Fatima got that rolling, which is really, really cool. She also, this was super exciting for me, once she finished her last math class with us, and I knew she was on a gap year, we snatched her right up and had her come work with us as a teacher assistant. So she's been working on all kinds of special projects for us as well. Let's see. She teaches herself piano. She loves spending time with her family. Now, if she's not busy enough already, just think about spending time with her family. There's mom, there's dad, and 6, count them up, 6 younger siblings. The other thing about Fatima and their family is that they have had an opportunity to travel internationally. In fact, Fatima was born outside of the U.S., came to the U.S., and her first 5 years of school, kindergarten plus her next 5 years of school, were actually at a dual language school. So that was both English and Spanish, where she was taking her school from. And then she discovered the world of independent study and started looking at what that looked like to work from home and then still have some interaction with her teachers at the school that she worked with. So let's see. I think I got everything there, Fatima. So first of all, welcome to the podcast. We're going to dive a lot more into all the different things that you have done and what you're up to and where you're headed.
Thank you so much, Mr. D. I'm so happy to be here.
Anything else you want to add to that?
I have to correct you really quick, though. I was not the student council president. I did start the music club, though. So
okay, but you were a part of the student council.
I was part of it all 4 years.
I got you. Okay.
Out of that, I founded the music club. So yeah.
Okay. Well, if you were the student council president, you would have been an awesome one. So there we go. Okay. So let's kind of get going here, right? You've got 6 younger siblings, right? And so tell me a little bit about your family, and then is there any, I know one of your sisters is doing one of our math programs as well. So tell me more about your family.
Yeah, so I'm the firstborn.
Stuff.
Yeah, exactly. I'm the firstborn, and I have 6 younger siblings, like you said, 5 sisters and 1 brother who's right in the middle. So he's sandwiched, nice and even. But my brother Michael is actually in your pre-algebra right now through Sage Oak. And then next, Nina is in geometry and Petra is in algebra 2. So, and I just graduated. So at one point there were, I think, 4 of us. But wow. Yeah, we're Mr. D fan. Mr. D fan.
Great. That's right. So Petra, I know, right? So,
yes,
so that's awesome. Yes. So I might even see her next year, which is great.
Yeah. For sure.
So that's super cool.
Sure.
Awesome. All right. So when you say, spending time with your family, 6 younger siblings, right? There's that boy right in the middle, which is kind of funny. So what's it like, being the oldest with 6 younger siblings? What's that like for you? And how do you spend time with them? Like what's some things you guys do together?
Yeah, it's pretty fun. Well, growing up, we'd always do like family movie nights and things, but now that we're all getting older, then we kind of have different, like I'll hang out with my they're not older than me, but the older group of sisters will hang out and we'll do stuff. And then I also play with my little sisters who they're still at like the age of playing Barbies and playing baby dolls and things like that. So I feel like one of the family activities we do is board games, because there are certain games that like all of us can play. But then also sometimes like Michael and I will like just go for a walk and he'll skateboard, and so it's just fun. It's
Nice.
everybody has their own interests, but yeah,
That's
yeah,
awesome. Okay.
it's
Wait,
exciting.
is there
Yeah,
a board
it
game you
keeps
can
you
play
on your
with?
toes.
How
Yeah.
do you play a board game with 9 people? There's like your mom and
Um,
dad playing too?
yeah, we actually just played one yesterday. And it was kind of funny because it's kind of out of the vault. So we found it in the closet one day. It hadn't even been opened. It was Trivia Adventure, from like 1985. And so we kind of all had fun. A lot of the trivia is like none of us kids even know anything because it's like from the 80s, but our parents are kind of so leading the game a little bit. But things like that, or any of us can just like be on a team, even if the little kids maybe might not. Everybody participates in one way or another. Apples
Right.
to Apples is another good one that that's not a board game per se, but
Okay. Oh, that sounds really fun. That's funny. So 1985. So I got my undergraduate degree in college, my first degree in 1984. Isn't that
oh my
crazy, right?
goodness. Yeah.
So yeah, it's so funny to just think
You
back.
probably
Yeah.
be good at it.
I would
Yeah.
do good. I'd be good there. I kind of know what's going on. So
Yeah, it
oh,
was all
that's
these
funny.
TV shows like Eight is Enough and like, shows that we don't.
Right. Yeah, you're going like, huh? Right. I
I
know when I'm at conventions now, and I just came back from a convention. So I always put music on before I do a talk when I'm speaking, right? And I always have to ask people, okay, anybody can name what band is this, right? And some of the parents do, even some of the parents can't do it because they're younger too, right? Oh man, there's no older people like me, right? So because I always put on those old 70s, early 80s, rock music,
Yeah,
right? They're like, we
yeah.
don't know that kind of stuff. So I was like, okay, well, that's all right. Okay, so uh, let's start kind of like as you were going through high school. Actually, before we do that, tell me a little bit about, you told me, you were sharing with me kind of the journey that you took and how you came to California. You weren't born in California. Tell me
Right.
about the bilingual school and kind of like what led you to Sage Oak, because I think that's such a great story for people to hear.
Yeah. So my parents had kind of learned Spanish living out of the country, and so they learned kind of by immersion in Mexico. And I did go to kindergarten there, and then we moved to California, and they really wanted me to have that bilingualism, and because they had discovered that it was like such a treasure to have, especially nowadays. And there happened to be a bilingual school nearby where we were in California. So I went there kindergarten through 5th grade. And then in 6th grade was when I started kind of my independent study journey. So I started homeschooling through the districts here in California. And I don't know if this option exists like in other states or anything, but at least in the district where I was, I could homeschool. Well, yeah, it was like a homeschool program through the public schools. So I took certain online classes and textbook classes at home. And then I also was able to go for 2 elective classes to the local public middle school. So that way I got to keep up my violin playing at the time. And actually that's when I switched to playing the viola, funny enough. So in public school, I started violin in 4th grade, and then I played 4th and 5th grade. In 6th grade, I got to go to orchestra and Spanish class at the local public middle school. And that's during one of the orchestra classes, the director was like, hey, any violinists want to switch to viola? Which is basically like a bigger violin with a lower tone, and not many people played it, and we had like a ton of violins. So I was like, I'll try something new. And ended up loving it. So I still play the viola to this day. That's what I got a scholarship for, actually. So pretty crazy.
That was a good
Yeah,
move.
that was my first step into homeschooling. And then we moved cities, and kind of decided to look for another option. And my parents really researched a lot of charter schools, like Mr. D was saying, are a big thing here in Southern California that we hadn't heard about before. So we were looking into it, and we found Sage Oak Charter School. And really connected with their value for student-driven, student-led learning, and being able to kind of cater my learning to my learning style and my interests, and being able to do like some project-based things. And so I started with Sage Oak in 8th grade and went all the way through high school, and I really, really enjoyed it. So yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. But and you found us when you started taking geometry. So
Yeah, I
it was
found
kind of,
Mr. D in freshman
yeah.
year.
So how, that's interesting too, because, a lot of times, so, just coming back from a convention, right? And, and I'm talking to lots of parents and we're seeing young people and, there's so many different curriculums out there where people can decide for doing things at home, where it's on their own and they're, doing their own thing. So even through Sage Oak, I know as us being a vendor, and I actually met the principal, Mrs. King, I met
Oh,
her.
awesome.
I want to say it was probably 10 years ago, right? So it's
Oh,
been, it's kind of been that long that we've known each other and been doing things together. But how did it work that because you can really look to see what curriculum you want to use and what works for you. So how did you decide on our program, not
yeah,
even knowing what it was going to be like
yeah,
until
I know. Yeah. So, well, let's just say 8th grade was my first year with Sage Oak, so we kind of just we're still discovering. I mean, there were so many options. So I think I did a textbook math. I think it was Algebra 1. I worked on that. Um, and so that was kind of just me and my mom like working through a textbook of Algebra 1, and she was kind of like, okay, like, I don't know if I'm capable. Like, she's like, I love math, but I think you need an actual like math teacher for high school. So yeah, the charter school has things called vendors, which are people like Mr. D who offer their curriculum or services through the charter school. And so we started researching. I was going to be taking geometry in freshman year, and we researched and we came upon Mr. D, and we really as a family just really connected with your kind of value and philosophy of learning, of like that student guided kind of curriculum that you have, which is how we correct our own mistakes, and like kind of that process of like discovery and learning by making mistakes, learning through experience with math, and just that philosophy. I think, yeah, it was like on your website, just the philosophy or mission statement or something. We just like, we're like, whoa, this sounds amazing. So we
Nice.
like, let's give it a try. and ended up being awesome.
Here you are. In fact, for people, if you're listening, right? So Fatima, we had when we launched our calculus course last year, but the year before that, Fatima was in a pilot with us. So we were like, okay, we're testing it, right? There's going to be all kinds of things to look at and mistakes to find, and look and see what's working for you, what's not working for you. So Fatima was part of that test group to kind of check it out. So we're so thankful that you were there to do that. So and with anything, we're always looking at our courses and always at how to improve them as well. So we're still doing that today, but to have you part of that first group, that was super, super cool. So well, when you look at that, right, and you graduated from Sage Oak, you did our programs, right? What would you say? And I think you kind of pointed to it, right? If you looked at like for people thinking about, there's so many different math curriculums out there, and just for curriculums in general, right? What would you say is your biggest takeaway from your experience?
Yeah, I would definitely say just that idea of being able to kind of forge your own pathway and not being afraid to, kind of like you said at the beginning, kind of that adventure of independent study. And I like to think of it in a funny way as like being in high school as an independent student. It's almost like you're already like experiencing the college experience, college life, right? Because you're forming your own schedule, you're really just kind of taking the reins, or like taking charge of what you want to be doing. You get to schedule out your day, and schedule out when your assignments are due and everything. And I think just those really handy life skills that I got to put into practice, I think that's my biggest takeaway, because you can take that in any job or college education, any pathway you're going to take. You're going to need that kind of self-guided, ambition, and just those tools that it gave me. I don't know how else to put it, but
No,
yeah, it's so
you put
much.
it perfectly.
Yeah.
And what you're pointing to is what we find out from so many people who, whether they're homeschoolers, whether they're charter school students doing an independent study program like you were able to do, but that's one of the things that I think is one of the biggest things they get is you get that independence and you get that ability to do things on your own and be able to find, find answers to your questions, right? So it's really, really great. So I love that that's what you take away with you, because those are the kinds of skills that you want to take when you head off into your career. And really it does prepare you for college, because you kind of are on your own when you're in college. You've got the professors, but it's a lot of work on your own. And
Yeah.
you have such a super cool adventure in front of you. And it's so funny to hear that you went from being a violin player, right,
Yes.
to just somebody saying, okay, hey, we need somebody to play viola. Who's interested, right?
No,
So
it was something like that, kind of just the adventure. I was like, middle school, I've just started homeschooling. Like, I'm gonna try something new. Like, why not? And, it
that's
led me to
so
this whole
great.
journey. And
Yeah. Well, tell us about it. So the viola, and how long have you been playing, and just kind of like
yeah.
what
Yeah, so
that's
like I
what's that been
said,
like
yeah,
for
I
you?
started violin in fourth grade. So I always have to count. I'm like, wait, fourth grade, I just graduated. That's about 8 years total, 8 to 9 years total. But for viola, it's been about 7 going on 8 years, playing the viola. And which is basically, like I said, like a bigger violin. You still hold it like upright here.
Right.
So it's not like a cello or a bass, but yeah, it has its own clef that you read too. So violins read treble clef and cellos and bass read bass clef in the orchestra, but the
Uh-huh.
viola is like somewhere in between. It's called alto clef. So
Really?
yeah, yeah, I
I
don't know if
didn't
you
know
knew that.
that. Okay.
Yeah, so learning piano, I kind of learned, that's when I started learning bass clef a little bit. And so now I can read all three, which is kind of fun.
Wow.
Because in a way, I feel like it's its own, as far as like music theory, I like it because, it's kind of like its own form of math in a weird way, right? Like
Right. Absolutely.
building chords and all the different inversions and things you can do.
Right. Oh my
Um,
gosh, that's awesome. Okay, so now, here you are, you have a scholarship to head into
yes.
Northwestern, which is a really, really amazing university, right? So for people listening, right, you've been playing viola for 7 years. Tell me about your practice schedule. How often do you practice? How long do you practice? What's that like for you?
I'd say typical, or like my ideal and typical practice schedule is kind of really the teacher that I've been working with for these past 2 years really gave me a great foundation in like technique and scales. So I just warm up with that usually every day. Try to go through like different key signatures and things just to practice, because it's after working with this teacher, then I had learned all the different scales and things on my instrument. So I'll spend maybe like 30 minutes to an hour, I guess, depending. Probably about 30 minutes, 20, 30 minutes on like scales and warm-ups. And then just depending on what stuff I'm working on, I usually work on like a Bach cello suite transcribed for viola. That's a big thing in the viola repertoire that we like to work on. And also just practicing like practice spots for any of the orchestra repertoire I'm working on. So any orchestras I'm playing in, then I'll make sure to go through and I mark like practice spots, and I go through these little chunks a day, and then it gets in your muscle memory. So then by the time I have rehearsal and concert, then I feel prepared. So probably
Mm,
about like 2 hours a day is
right.
about right. My longer ones can go like 4 hours, but I don't do that every day. It
I
just,
gotcha.
you get in the groove and you just kind of get lost in it. So
Right. No, it's funny because it's like I'm thinking back when I was in high school, I was a trumpet player. I still can play the trumpet, but I don't know how much I can say I play the trumpet, right? But if I pick it up, I can play. Here's when I tell people, like, it's interesting, you were talking about your muscle memory, right? And I just happened to meet a guy recently, and he said, "Oh yeah, I was a trumpet player. We had this really similar background, right?" And we both started to laugh because I said, "Well, can you still play?" And he goes, "Yeah, I'm good for about 2 or 3 minutes." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's about me, right?" There's a band that I know, they have me come play, but I only can play a couple songs because I don't have the, we call it our chops, right? As horn players,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I don't have the chops for it anymore, right? So
Yeah.
it's the muscles, right? They get tired so quick and easy, right? But I remember being in high school, and I would, I'd have my band class, and we had a jazz class and the marching band, and I come home and I'd still play for at least 2 hours every day, right? And for me, it was like I used to have fun because I would turn the radio on, and I put the radio on, I would just hear a song and I'd see if I could play along with it, right? And so it was a lot of how I trained myself to be able to improvise was by just making it up as we go, right? So it was good. But I did have a teacher, and he was, he was very, same thing, scales and all those different things. So
No, I love that. I love that. And that's so true, because I feel like as like a wind instrument, definitely you have to have those chops. For us, it's more like, you got to strengthen your back and like make sure you're not like hunching or anything with your shoulders.
right. Oh,
Things
right.
like that.
I didn't
Yeah.
even
Or
think
even
about
like
that,
your
right.
fingers, just things you don't think about, like your tendons, you have to like stretch them and like, in your hands.
Wow. Oh, that's really good. Okay, that's really cool.
Yeah.
So, all right. So I say this all the time, but you'll be a great person to echo something that I say, that I think there's a huge correlation between math and music. So do you see that yourself?
Yes, I do. I'm so glad you think that too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I know you're a musician as well. And I like how you pointed out, kind of the improvising too, because that's something I even kind of discovered recently once I learned like music theory and I started, working with the keyboard a little more and just like seeing kind of that math that goes behind music. When we talk about like chord progressions and things, we have numbers for scale notes, and we talk about numbers for different chords. So there literally is math in music in that sense. We say like, oh, the 1 4 5, or like things like that.
Right.
So once I learned that, then it's like, oh, you can kind of play by ear or start to jam with people who are, some friends had like a jam session, and they're like playing like, oh, we're in the key of G and we're gonna do the 1 4 5, and then we're gonna go back. And so then I was like just kind of playing along, like fiddling around a little bit. But yeah, I'd say definitely like when it comes to music theory, that's where I see the math. But also just like in the patterns in music too, you have in classical music, you have like a theme, and then it comes back with like um, different variations. So I think it's like in math where you have so many different ways you can come to the solution. Like music is kind of like there's so many ways, or even in improvising, I feel like you can come to that kind of final statement, or
Right.
right, like yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. I learned fractions that way. That's how I learned fractions.
Oh,
I was looking at
good.
like, I was looking at like half notes and quarter notes and eighth notes and 16th notes.
Yeah,
And then I saw 30-second
yeah,
notes. I'm like, this is
exactly. Break
cool,
it
right?
down. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
totally. It's like factoring. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Yeah. So
Yeah.
so I was like, okay, I enjoyed that part. Well, that's awesome. So, okay, you've got a scholarship to Northwestern, and it's through Questbridge. And it was interesting. We were chatting a little bit about taking a gap year, and Questbridge, though, had some requirements for you to be able to take a gap year and at
Yeah.
the same time still be able to have your scholarship. So tell us a little bit about that, because for people that are interested in scholarships and still having that gap year, there's probably some things they need to know.
Yes. I want to say, I don't think I mentioned this when we were talking earlier, but I want to say, one of the things you can do, this is just isn't the path that I took. I just happened to do a different path, but I know a lot of people nowadays are like applying to the university that they want to go to, or applying for scholarships and then deferring for like a gap year. So I know that's an option you can do. But for me, I didn't actually know exactly where I wanted to go just yet. I knew I wanted to apply to the Questbridge scholarship and apply to one of their 45. I think now it's actually 48 college partners. So they partner with colleges and universities across the country to provide scholarships for high school seniors. But as I was a high school senior, I was still, so curious about a lot of things and wanted to kind of discover what I would want to study in college, what I would want to focus in on, and also just felt like I needed a little time to transition into that college experience. And I was like a year younger than most of the people in my graduating class, so I just wanted some more life experience before heading off to college. But I really wanted to do the Questbridge, so I reached out to them and I asked, hey, I'm planning on taking a gap year. Is there any way I could still apply as a gap year student? So like after I graduate high school versus applying like in the summer going into senior year. And they said, yeah, just I would need to make sure that I wouldn't take any college classes during my gap year, so that way I would be a first year student going into the scholarship. So just that caveat, just making sure I was doing everything on my part. So then I got started researching the colleges and just got to enjoy my senior year. And even in my senior year, I kind of started doing things with my gap year. I started working with professional orchestras and getting gigs and playing and getting that experience, which really was one of my main goals for this year, just to get involved with the music industry and just see all the different pathways available and see if it's really something that interests me. And so far, I've really loved it, and I ended up getting a scholarship for music, so I'm very excited.
That's awesome. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, what a great story.
Yeah.
When you get a so going through doing QuestBridge and then selecting Northwestern as your
Yes.
university, did you have to do auditions, or did they want to hear, like a
Yeah.
portfolio from you?
Yeah, definitely. So I actually applied to 13 schools through the QuestBridge process. And I decided to apply to the match scholarship, which is like the possibility to be locked in with a 4-year scholarship with them. They also have like a regular decision option where then it's just like a later decision timeline. So I had done the earlier timeline this year during my gap year. And so the application starts like in August for QuestBridge, and it's due in September. So I think by October, like early October, they notify the finalists of the QuestBridge process. So QuestBridge selects its own finalists first before sending those applications out to the college partners. So I was first selected as a finalist. And so from there, I was like, okay, like I'd been researching my schools that I wanted to apply to. And kind of during that time, Northwestern had come into my sights. I hadn't even really heard or known about it until this process. So I made my list of schools, and even within those few weeks of just researching and going to different, like there were only 2 schools here in California that I was applying to, so I had gone to certain events there, did research. But during that time, Northwestern really came up as like a school that resonated with everything I wanted for my college experience. Was, like a rigorous or a renowned music program with a viola teacher who I really connected with. And then also being able to keep up the academic side and just study so many different things. So in that sense, Northwestern came up and started making its way up on my list. But yes, so as a music applicant for all those schools, I was auditioning, I was sending in, first it's what we call a pre-screening. So I would send in like 2 or 3 videos of different repertoire requirements. So I've had this whole spreadsheet of like what all the schools wanted and, making sure I was checking everything off. They were all pretty much similar, so I was able to send in the same videos. But then some of them I ended up virtually auditioning with, like Northwestern. And so I was able to do a Zoom audition for Northwestern with the viola teacher. But basically it's like through the instrument, whatever instrument you're applying for. So I was applying for viola performance. So I had to audition with the viola program and go through those steps. And I couldn't find out if I had passed the pre-screening round until I had sent in my actual Northwestern application. So it was like all these little steps that had to line up. And then once I did hear back that I passed the pre-screening, then I went into the next audition round. And then my viola teacher, now my current viola teacher, who's going to be my teacher at Northwestern, she was very excited about me during the whole process. So for the music students, I feel like it's really that connection with the teacher that's going to be important. And I just feel so blessed that it's worked out this way for me. So
That's really amazing. And there's something, and as people are listening, right? And I don't know how often, how much they hear this, right? And probably a lot of people do, but there's something in when you're speaking, and I just want you to really just to acknowledge you, is that when you're talking, oftentimes we talk to people, it's like, well, my mom did this, my mom did that, my dad did this, my dad did that. What I hear you say is, I did this and I did that. Now I'm sure that your parents helped you along the way and probably guided you, but it sounds to me like, I have a spreadsheet of all the things that you need to do, right? It's not like, well, my mom made a spreadsheet for me. I really can hear your own independence in that, which just goes back to the kind of way that you've been studying and the ways that you've been learning. So it's just really great. So, for people listening, if you haven't heard Fatima in talking in that first person, right? Where it's like, this is what she did, as opposed to this is what someone did for her. So I just really love that. It's really awesome. Okay. Now, thinking
my parents were there. We were a team in it all, for sure.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure. Right. But it's great.
I think just the whole, like, they never, I got an email. Questbridge actually has a program for high school juniors. If anyone would be interested, you can look it up. So that's what I had first applied to. That's how I found out about Questbridge. I think I just, after taking the PSAT, you start getting, like, I opted in for those college emails and things. So I started getting emails from scholarships and things like that. And I just got an email one day and was like, apply to this Questbridge scholars program. And I was like, oh, what's this? I was like, whoa, this sounds really cool. And so I just really resonated with kind of Questbridge's mission from the beginning. So I did get into the junior program, and then that's why I was kind of in communication with them as far as applying for the scholarship. But yeah, I don't know. It's just something like none of us necessarily had insights, like my family or anything, but it just came to me, and I wanted to go for it. So I went for it, and I'm going forward, and it's really exciting.
Oh, that's so cool. All right. Now, I wanted to major in music in college. That's all I
Mm,
have to tell you, right? I did. And when I was growing up, we kind of had a different, like my parents were always like, yeah, go to college, go to college, go to college. And I even had a scholarship opportunity to play music in college. And my dad had, it was a big part of that, right? And so we started talking, started looking, right? What I didn't have, and what kind of made me a little nervous about getting a degree in music back then. Now this is,
mhm,
this is
mhm.
like in the 80s, right? This is a
Yeah.
long time ago. But when I look now, it didn't occur to me about I would, if I was going to go to school for music, that would be all I would do, you
Mhm.
know. So are you looking at having, like you're going to major in music, but are you having a minor or a double major? What are you thinking about?
Yeah.
Me, I didn't have that backup plan. So I gave up on the music thing because I didn't have this. So I just went a different direction, right? But how
Yeah.
about you? What does that look like for you?
Oh, well, first of all, I'm so thankful that you're sharing that, because I was actually going to ask you, it's always, I'm just curious seeing different people's pathways, especially like my teachers and things. So, it's like, um, so many different pathways to get to the career you're at. But, yeah, for me, I think Northwestern, you'll find, anybody you talk to who's at Northwestern currently, they'll introduce themselves and tell you their major, but then they'll be like, oh, I'm double majoring in this, and I'm minoring in this, and I'm getting a certificate in this. And it's not that, the workload. I think it's becoming something more popular too, not only at Northwestern, um, but also definitely at Northwestern, double majoring and minoring is definitely a possibility. And even for the viola students, specifically, I had talked to my viola teacher. She said a lot of her studio, some of them getting double degrees, some of them just double majoring or doing a minor. It just comes down to kind of those interests. Like I was saying, like, um, I think I'm not necessarily going to get a double degree, but we'll see. That would be like a 5-year program. But I would love to possibly double major or at least minor in Spanish studies, since that's something that I've loved throughout my education. And I did get my biliterate seal graduating from Sage Oak. But I would love to keep that up and in some capacity continue that. But yeah, I think it just Northwestern like really makes that possible for their students, even the music students, which is something pretty incredible. Because there's a prime example. One of my viola teacher was telling me that one of her recent students who graduated, she got a double degree in like engineering and viola performance, and the whole time was really passionate about both. But ended up getting a job with the Chicago Symphony Orchestra and now is like playing with them. So, but
Mm,
she can possibly still go for this engineering career. So
right.
I don't know.
Kind of
It's
like a
it's
backup plan, just in case,
yeah,
right?
just in case. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, now you just said something, and people might have heard you say that, and they're like, "What's that?" So, biliterate certificate. What is that?
Yes. Yes. Biliterate certificate is something issued by the state of California. Um, Different states might have it as well. You can get it in different languages, but I had gone for Spanish. There are certain requirements. I believe you have to take the language for all 4 years of high school, and then you have to pass a test at the end of senior year that involves speaking, writing, reading, listening. So I had done it with Sage Oak. It was a proctored test, and you have to get like a certain score. I think it's like scored like 1 through 9 or something, and you have to get like a 6, something
Okay.
like that. So you have to
Right.
pass, or you have to be proficient, in all the different areas and speaking. And um, so I had done that. And yeah, just because that was kind of, I think you mentioned earlier, or we were talking about how I went to a bilingual elementary school. So that bilingualism has been part of my education throughout.
Right.
And so I'm really thankful that I was able to keep that up through independent study. I found a vendor who was a great Spanish teacher, and kind of mentor for me. So I was able to keep up that conversational part of Spanish. But yeah, yeah.
That's awesome. I'm still practicing Spanish. My Spanish, so I just come up with, I just tell people, lo siento, mi español muy mal. That's all I can tell people. My Spanish is bad. That's all I got, right?
Oh, I can practicar.
I know. At least I can say that, right? I can say that, and I can ask where the bathroom is and some things like that. So, I'm pretty good there, but that's funny.
Yeah,
Oh, it's
yeah.
awesome. Well, Fatima, this has been a blast. So one thing for sure, we're going to have to come back and kind of like follow along with you, right? And kind of see what's
Oh,
happening and how
yeah,
things are going, right? We'll come back and do this again.
for
But I
sure.
always ask our students, this is one question I always like to ask our students, if you could, if you just stop and you think right now and it's like, what would you want to tell your parents thank you for? Because you look at this life that's in front of you, it's pretty amazing right now. You've had a lot to do with it, right? But so have
Mhm.
your parents. So if you had a chance to thank them for something, what would you want to thank them for?
I'd really, really want to thank my parents for their constant dedication and putting their whole heart and soul into me. Not only, just my education. Well, yeah, my all around education, being my primary teachers at home of like just life skills and everything. And they were the ones who researched all of my education options, and who continually try to provide me with the best opportunities. And with music and with finding teachers and finding math programs and helping me, edit and revise my college essays and just everything, they're always there, and I know they always will be there. So I'm just continually so thankful to them. So
Oh,
yeah.
that's awesome. Now, I'm going to take a guess. You probably have thanked them for that recently, but when's the last time you told them thank you for that?
Probably pretty recently during
I
this whole
thought so.
process,
Yeah, that's what
um,
I thought.
yeah.
Okay, very cool. All right, we actually have actually, do you know, I don't know if you know, we have another guy that's joining us here. That was one of our teachers, Mr. Jones, Chico Jones. So he'll be back. So that's funny. Yeah, so he's getting ready to pop in here as well. We're going to do something today together too. So, well, awesome. Well, Fatima, thanks so much for being here. It is just it's just a delight. And, just for people that are listening, we have an extraordinary team of young people, of people that are their parents that now work with us, and and then our staff and our teachers. But it's like we're kind of picky about the people that come and work with us. We want them to have gone through our program and see what it looks like. But I was so, when Fatima had finished up her last course with us, I was like, oh my goodness, and found out you were doing a gap year. It was just so great to have you come on and work with us. And
Thank
all
you.
of all of our staff members, they're all like, how did you find her? We love her. We love her. We love her. So
Oh, I love being a part of the team, so
it's so
I hope
much
I can
fun. So
continue.
we're
Yeah.
we're glad to have you. All right. Well, great. Well,
Thank
Fatima,
you
again,
so
thanks for
much,
making
Mr. D.
thanks for making your
All
day to be
right.
here. And for everybody that's listening, tune in next time, and we'll see you again here on A Plus Parents. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.